Do we need all of these big fancy tools and machines to build something like this or something like this? Absolutely not. But do they make the job a little easier? Of course they do. We don't all have these types of machines and tools in our shop, especially when we're first starting out. My name's Nick Starrett. I've been a custom furniture maker for over a decade now. I've specialized in custom built-ins, custom entertainment centers, and custom bookcases like the one we're about to build in this video. Now, the client on this one is a very special client. It's my wife, and her birthday is in just a few days. So we've got to get this thing built, knocked out, and installed before her birthday. So come with me. I'm going to show you guys how to build this bookcase. Very minimal tools, very minimal skill level, and I think you guys are going to be very surprised at what the cost is. I'll share that with you at the end. Let's go. Oh, and by the way, my AC broke in the workshop. We're in Florida. It's summertime, so we're going to be sweating. So because we're painting this project, we're going to use unfinished birch plywood for the carcass of the bookcase. It paints really easy, and there's little prep work that goes into getting the pieces ready. So for our face frames, we're going to be using poplar. Poplar's a hardwood. It's on the softer end of the hardwoods, but it sands amazing, it paints great, and it's a little less expensive compared to something like maple that you would use if you were painting a project like this. Now, I would definitely stay away from the pines and softwoods in this instance because they're just going to get banged up, dinged up, and they're going to have dents in your furniture over the years.
Now, normally I would use our 52-inch saw stop to rip down the plywood, but I understand most people don't have a table saw that large, so we're going to use our track saw.
Look at this. Not 10 minutes in, and it's already starting. It's going to be a good day.
You can find a decent track saw for a couple $100, and a big benefit to a track saw is it breaks down into smaller pieces, so if you're working out of a garage, it's great to store and tuck away when you don't need it. With all the plywood parts cut, we're going to sand down all of the edges just to give everything a nice smooth finish. Now, an easy DIY tip to build your bookcase and keep everything together nice and square is to build a frame for the top and the bottom. I just used some extra poplar strips that I had left over from the wood for our face frame. Now I'm going to attach the frames to the top and the bottom of the back of the bookcase. Next, we'll attach both sides of the bookcase. And besides the brad nails to hold everything together, of course we're going to use our BOSSDOG wood glue. Once this stuff bites, it doesn't let go. You can try it out for yourself at bossdogglue.com. I'll also put the link for it below. With both sides of the bookcase attached, we're going to move on to the bottommost shelf and attach it right to the frame that was at the base. Now, in most cases, when building a bookcase with multiple shelves like this, we'll use something called the dado stack on the table saw. But we're trying to keep things DIY friendly on this build, and I know in the beginning a dado stack can be a little bit overwhelming. So to get the same effect and strength as a dado, I cut strips that are going to go in between each shelf. These will secure each shelf in place by sandwiching them in between each other. And as you can see, I built this bookcase in two sections that are going to butt right up against each other. That just makes it more manageable to move around and install, especially if you're on your own. Moving on to our poplar face frame, we're using S3S lumber, which means surfaced on three sides. With it being surfaced on three sides, it's going to give you a square edge to reference off of when you're cutting on the table saw, and you're also going to save a lot of time not having to plane down or mill any lumber. And I use the table saw for the face frame because most people have a table saw that is big enough to cut down strips like this. Because we want to arch at the top of the face frame on both sides, I'm going to use some finish nails, one in the center where the peak of the arch will be, and one on each end where the bottom of the arch will be. Normally I would cut this out on the bandsaw, but if you're doing this at home, you can get the same job done just as well with a jigsaw. Now to assemble our face frame, we're going to be using pocket holes. If you're in the market for a good pocket hole jig, you gotta check out this Massca pocket hole jig system. It has a magnetic spot for every tool and accessory that you need for your pocket holes, and when you're done, you just unclamp it and hang it back on the wall. And now, it's time to assemble the face frames. It's always a good feeling when you go to test fit the face frame and it fits perfectly. Time to move on to the other side. Face frames are done, attached, and sanded down. Now it's time to move on to paint. In the past, when I was running the cabinet shop full-time out of my workshop, I had a dedicated paint room. But since we started BOSSDOG Glue Company, the glue company has taken over the paint room, so we are going to be painting outside today. After 4 coats of paint and sanding lightly in between, we're going to let this dry overnight in the shop, and the next day move on to the install. And as you can see, the wall that the bookcase is going on is pretty small, so let's hope we measured correct. First thing we have to do is cut out a slot for that outlet. And now the moment of truth. Let's just hope that I measured correctly for this hole, or else we're gonna have a problem. Perfect fit. I've never been a huge fan of filler strips for cabinets, especially when they're built-ins, so I overhang the face frame by about 1 inch. Once you've measured the existing opening at the top, bottom, and middle, draw a line, and then just use your circular saw and cut that line. Now, if you did this right and measured correctly, you're going to be left with a much cleaner look than you would with a filler strip on the edge. Now, with the hard part over, it's time to tie this thing together and get it secured to the wall. If you noticed in the beginning, I was able to stand these cabinets up inside the room without hitting the ceiling. That's because I make the cabinets 2 inches shorter than the height of the ceiling. That allows me to stand them up, and then I just use a piece of crown molding to cover up the rest of the gap. That really gives it that true built-in feel. With all of our paint touch-ups dry, it's time to hang the lights. Now these lights are pretty cool. They're actually rechargeable LED picture lights. You can turn them on and off by remote, and there's multiple settings. And that is a wrap on the bookcase. I guess if you made it this far, you're probably wondering how much this whole thing cost. The total cost on this build was just under $300. Thank you guys so much for following along on this build, and hopefully it inspired you to go build something for yourself. If you guys got any questions, drop them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer.